all the legendary, all the Facebook, we all had our whole name on Facebook. I was running around here tearing this down.
These guys think they're warriors out here. And much like soldiers or warriors, they'll protect their territory.
Dante, Infant Nightmare. Kenery wasn't just feared. He was the kind of name that sent chills down spines in South Central LA. By the age of 17, he wasn't just running with the Black P Stones, he was their top shooter, racking up a body count that made even seasoned gangsters nervous. But how did a youngin' barely old enough to drive become one of LA's most dangerous hitters? Stick around because Dante's story isn't just shocking, it's a mirror reflecting the darker truths of the streets. Let's take a trip back to 1998, right in the heart of South Central LA. That's when Dante Kenery came into this world, but it wasn't no warm welcome. Picture this: Baldwin Village Projects, better known as the Jungles. It ain't no place for the weak, trust. Every day in the Jungles is like playing a real-life game of survival. You got fiends on every corner, police sirens as your lullaby, and more than books in most homes. This is where our boy Dante takes his first steps, learns his first words, and gets his first taste of street life. By the time Dante hits 13, he's already got his eyes on the prize, joining the Black P Stones. Now y'all might think joining a gang is easy, but it ain't. We're talking training day vibes for real. Gangs rolling 20 deep on every block, always watching, always ready. You can't just walk up and ask for an application, you feel me? For a youngin' like Dante, there's only two choices: join up or become a target. And let me tell you, being a target in the Jungles is like having a bullseye painted on your back 24/7. So what's a young boy to do? Dante makes his choice. He picks up his first just like that, there's no turning back.
You know, a lot of people that bang, they scared. They gotta bang because it's protection. You know, I always felt like I didn't have to bang because wasn't nobody gonna do nothing to me to make me bang.
Got it.
And they knew I was down to jump off my bike and thump.
Word starts spreading on the streets about this youngin' they're calling Infant Nightmare. While most 13-year-olds are worrying about their first crush, Dante's out here making grown men nervous. But let's real talk for a second. How does a baby-faced kid end up with a name like Infant Nightmare? It ain't because he's good at video games, that's for sure. He's pulling triggers without flinching, stepping to older gang members without fear. In the Jungles, that kind of rep is like gold. By the time he's 14, Dante's no longer just some youngin' in the gang. He's becoming a force. The older members are starting to look at him different. They're seeing the future of the Black P Stones in this young blood. And Dante, he's soaking it all up, getting ready for his time to shine.
They everywhere. On Blackstone, you feel me? Just because you from Blackstone don't mean you gotta be out here like us. Not saying that we out here doing the wrong thing, but you feel me? We more.
We doing the right thing.
But here's the thing, y'all. This ain't no success story. This is the beginning of a tragedy. Because while Dante's busy becoming the Infant Nightmare, he's sealing his own fate. The higher he climbs in the gang, the shorter his life expectancy gets.
Once you're jumped into an actual gang in the city of Los Angeles, you're hit with a really overwhelming sense of, damn, things are serious. You get any moment now. We have a core list, a list of enemies throughout the area we're living in. We can't go on these streets.
Now, y'all might think every gang member is out there causing mayhem, but that ain't the truth. Most of them are just trying to survive. But Dante? He's different. He's part of that elite 10%, the real street soldiers who are always strapped and ready for action. We're talking about the ones who make even hardened criminals think twice. By the time Dante hits 15, he's not just another face in the crowd. Word on the street is this youngin' was taking out rival gangs' top dogs like it's nothing. We're not talking about some random gang members here. We're talking about the big fish, the ones who've been running things for years. And here's the thing about Dante. He ain't playing around. This isn't some game to him. He's ready to unalive or die trying. His crew starts noticing and they give him a new nickname, Mr. Narpadayam Kilometer. Now, you might be wondering what that means. Well, let me break it down for you. The 40 and 40K, that's all about the Rolling 40s, the Black P Stones' biggest rivals. Dante made it his personal mission to light them up, and he did it with scary efficiency. It got to the point where the Rolling 40s were getting hit weekly, sometimes even more, and everyone knew who was behind it. Dante's name was ringing bells all over South Central. From the Jordan Downs projects to the edges of Inglewood, people are whispering about this young shooter who's changing the game. But here's the thing about rising to the top. It comes with a price. The higher Dante climbed, the bigger the target on his back grew. Every time he took out one of the Rolling 40s, he wasn't just adding to his rep. He was also adding names to the list of people who want him. And wasn't just the Rolling 40s. Dante's beef with them was spilling over, causing problems with other gangs too. The 18th Street Gang, another major player in South Central, was getting pulled into the mix. Dante's got them in his sights too, and they were not happy about it. So there he was. Dante Kenery, barely old enough to drive and already one of the most feared shooters in all of South Central. He was living up to his Infant Nightmare name in ways that are making even the OGs nervous. But the question was, how long could he keep this up? In a world where today's top dog is tomorrow's man, Dante's walking a tightrope with no safety net. You thought you'd seen it all in South Central? Not even close. July 29th, 2018. This was the date that shook the streets to their core. It was the night Dante Infant Nightmare Kenery made his boldest move, a move that would leave a trail of chaos and destruction in its wake. It was just past midnight when Dante and his crew rolled through the streets. Their mission was clear: find the rolling 40s and make them pay. The tension was thick, every shadow felt like a threat, and their fingers rested nervously on their triggers. Then they saw them, 43rd and Vermont. This was it. Dante's target was a high-ranking member of the Rolling 40s known as Africa. The car screeched to a halt, and without hesitation, Dante leapt out, gun blazing. Chaos erupted, screams, gunfire, bodies hitting the pavement. It was carnage, but chaos doesn't always go as planned. Dante's bullet didn't hit Africa. Instead, it struck Tiny Hardhead, another Rolling 40s member. Tiny wasn't just some random guy. He was respected, connected, and now lying on the ground as his lifeblood pooled around him. For a brief moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Everything went silent. Even the streets, usually alive with noise, felt unnervingly still. Everyone who witnessed it knew they'd just seen something that would change everything. Then, the silence shattered. Screams, more gunshots, and the wail of sirens filled the air. The night turned into pure chaos. Dante, though, didn't flinch. In his mind, this was his victory. He thought he had just cemented his reputation as the deadliest hitter in South Central. But he was wrong, dead wrong. Tiny wasn't just a casualty. He was someone with deep ties to powerful people, and those people were about to make Dante pay. As Dante and his crew sped off, leaving devastation behind, words spread like wildfire. From the projects to the precincts, Dante's name was on everyone's lips. What went down that night wasn't just another gang altercation, it was an act that set the entire neighborhood on edge. Turns out Tiny Hardhead wasn't just some random Rolling 40s member. Nah, this dude had connections. We're talking ties to the 55 neighborhood Crips too. The jungles? It became a no-go zone. For 2 whole months, it was like the purge out there. Drive-bys popping off left and right, shootouts in broad daylight. Nowhere was safe. Not the corner store, not the basketball courts, not even people's homes. By the time the dust settled, 3 more bodies hit the ground. Just like that, 3 more lives snuffed out in this senseless beef. But here's the kicker. All this chaos, all this bloodshed, it was all aimed at one target: Dante, the infant nightmare himself. The 40s and the 50s had tunnel vision, and Dante was the only thing they could see at the end of that tunnel. Now, Dante ain't stupid. He knew he'd kicked a hornet's nest, so what's he do? He goes ghost. But here's the thing about repping the streets. It's got a life of its own. Even with Dante in hiding, his name was on everyone's lips. He went from being the top shooter to the most wanted man in all of South Central. Meanwhile, the cops were out in force, trying to keep a lid on things. But let's be real, in neighborhoods like this, people trust the streets more than they trust the badge. So while the police were patrolling, doing their thing, most people were keeping their mouths shut tight. They knew snitches get stitches, and in that climate, maybe even worse. Now fast forward to October 3rd, 2018, the day that lid finally popped off. Dante's luck was about to run out in a way nobody saw coming. It started out like any other day in the jungles. Dante was chilling with some bloods on their turf, thinking he was safe. Big mistake. He'd been laying low for months, but I guess he figured he could relax a little. Out of nowhere, 2 figures roll up. Before anyone can even blink, shots start ringing out. Bodies hit the ground left and right. It's chaos, pure and simple. And right in the middle of it all, Dante. This time, Dante wasn't the one pulling the trigger. He was the one catching bullets. The hunter became the hunted, just like that. It's like all those people he'd wronged, all those families he'd destroyed, they all got their payback in that one moment.
Hard-headed set trip. He on the phone calling his homies.
They rushed Dante to the hospital, sirens blaring. But deep down, everyone knew it was too late. At 5:51 p.m., it was game over. Dante Infant Nightmare Kenery, the youngin' who had South Central shook, was gone. Just like that, snuffed out at 19 years old. Now, here's where it gets wild. The streets started buzzing with the craziest rumor. Word is, it wasn't some hardcore gangster who took out Dante. Nah, they're saying it was a female shooter from the Rolling 40s. Dante's death shocks everyone. Even people who hated him couldn't quite believe it. The infant nightmare, the youngin' who seemed untouchable, was no more. Some people were relieved, others were scared of what comes next. Because in gang life, every ending is just the start of more violence.
I cannot with LA. I cannot with LA. First of all, living in LA for like 2 years has really taught me you gotta watch your back for everything. Like, you know how I have my back to the side like this? Oh, hold on. I be having my back like over me like this because you gotta watch out. And every time I'm like walking around, like I always like looking from my left to my right, always like check yourself from the back to the front because you never know, people could.
His death left a vacuum in the gang world, and nature hates a vacuum. Before Dante's body was even cold, people were already making moves. Young guns trying to step up, old heads seeing an opportunity to reclaim power. It was like a chess game where all the pieces just got scrambled. And let's not forget about the Black Pea Stones. They just lost one of their top shooters. You think they're gonna let that slide? Nah, they were out for Revenge unalivings were about to spike. The cycle of violence that Dante was caught up in was about to spin even faster. And it ain't just about bodies in the street. Nah, this beef has gone digital too. Social media is blowing up with disses on Dante. Even in death, this youngin' was causing chaos. You got people from rival gangs posting videos mocking his demise. They were dancing on his grave, literally and digitally. And get this, the Rolling 40s weren't satisfied with just social media beef. They were taking it to the studio dropping diss tracks about Dante. The nightmare ain't gonna end, huh? Well, what if I told you Dante's story is playing out all over every single day? It's like a broken record, stuck on repeat in hoods across the country. But here's the real question. What's keeping that record spinning? See, Dante's life and death ain't just about one kid with a gun. It's a symptom of something way bigger, a disease that's eating away at our cities from the inside out. We're talking about systemic poverty that's got its roots buried so deep, it feels like there's no way out. In neighborhoods like the jungles, opportunities are about as rare as a unicorn sighting. Youngins grow up seeing more healers than doctors, more gang members than college grads. And let's talk about those broken homes for a sec. When you're raised by the streets because your pops is locked up and your mama's working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, who's there to show you the right path? The OGs on the corner become your role models, whether you want them to be or not. Now, y'all ever heard of the school-to-prison pipeline? In places like the jungles, it's as real as it gets. Schools are underfunded, overcrowded, and sometimes feel more like prisons than places of learning. Youngins are more likely to get suspended than get help, and before you know it, they're dropping out and the streets are calling their name. So when gang life comes knocking, offering quick money, respect, and a sense of family, can you really blame these little ones for answering? It might be a dead end, but when every other door looks locked, that one wide-open door to the gang life starts looking real good. And that's the story of Dante Kenery, a name that became both feared and infamous in South Central LA. But here's the real question. Was Dante a product of his choices or his environment? Could his path have been different if he had more opportunities, or was he always destined to meet this tragic end? And most importantly, how do we break the cycle that keeps creating more Dante in neighborhoods across the country? I want to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about Dante's story and what we as a society can do to stop this cycle. And don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe so you never miss any of this deep, gripping content. And hey, if this story got you thinking, stick around and check out the next video on the end screen. It's just as eye-opening and intense. I'll see you there.